What's going on? My name's Robert and you are watching Southpaw Autoworks. Andy is back at it again with the 65 Ford Fairlane. In this episode, he's pulling the engine out of the first Fairlane. While the 289 is out, Andy will take a peek inside of it. He will also do a thing or two in order to freshen it up. If all looks good, the 289 will be going into the second Fairlane sooner rather than later. Without further ado, let's dive in. It was decided that the manual transmission would be unbolted from the engine and remain in the Fairlane for the time being.
There it is, kids.
For the fun of it, we were trying really hard to sneak the engine out without having to pull the hood, but as you can see, we fell short of the glory.
That's good stuff. Onions, peppers, you name it. Want to get in there?
Pretty sure onions favorite vegetables with aesthetic because they don't fight.
Okay, we've got the engine out of the first Fairlane, the 289. What we're going to do is remove the oil pan, take a look inside the oil pan, see what's in there, if there's anything to be concerned about. We're going to then remove the timing chain cover, take a look at the timing chain. We've got a new timing chain for it if we need it. We haven't put it on the engine stand yet. We will be doing that, but what we've decided to do is remove the oil pan now with the engine the way it is, so that if there's any contamination, so forth, then there will be able to see that rather than flip the engine over and have that get up into the engine or the rotating assembly itself. So we'll do it this way, then we'll mount it on the engine stand, we'll flip it over, we'll show you how to replace that timing chain if necessary, and then we're going to remove a connecting rod cap and a main bearing cap. Take a look at the bearings while we're there just to make sure we're in good shape before we seal the thing up and then put her back in the number 2 Fairlane. Okay, got the engine oil pan off. Take a look here in the very bottom. We've got some gasket material and stuff. Not worried about that. Got a little bit of sludge down in here in the bottom. No chunks, no pieces. That's a good sign. That's what we want to see. Probably the normal amount of crud that's in there depending on how many miles is on this engine out of the 65. But at this point I'm going to say we're in good shape. We'll continue on. We'll put the engine on the stand, flip it over, and we'll pull a main cap for you and a rod cap, and we'll take a look, see what we find. Still got a little bit of muck in there, but it's clean now. One more time. Get it cleaned up. That in the bottom of the pan is an indicator of additives. That sticky, gooey mess in the bottom that doesn't want to come out of there too easy is usually an indication of an additive. One of the name brands, STP, something else. That's what it does. It sticks. Doesn't want to come off. Even with brake clean, it will. It just takes a while to get it out of there. But I learned that from machine shop days of cleaning engine blocks and cylinder heads. Stuff that doesn't come off after it's been cleaned in the cleaning machine is usually an additive. There, it's starting to break down finally. Good to go in a cleaning machine.
Looks pretty clean.
Pretty clean. Plate's clean. That's just the little gasket they put on the back of the plate from the factory. Yeah, that'll work.
The cleaning machine did a great job on the bell housing, the flywheel, and a number of other Fairlane parts. Although the flywheel has some blemishes on it, it will live to see another day. It is getting sent to the machine shop later this week.
We've got the engine removed, oil pan off. I've got it mounted to the engine stand and rotated around, oil pan side up. We inspected the oil pan earlier, looked pretty good. What we're going to do now is take this harmonic balancer off. We've got the water pump Already unbolted. Get that down out of the way. I've got the fuel pump, same thing. Already unbolted. Get that out of the way, out of the timing cover. Gonna remove the bolt for the harmonic balancer. Then what we're going to need is a puller to remove the harmonic balancer. This can also be used for steering wheel removal. I'm going to set this up on here, get the bolts that fit it. Okay, that makes pretty short work of getting that harmonic balancer removed. Alright, we're going to make sure we got all of our bolts removed. Just a side note, we didn't have to remove the water pump. This could have remained bolted to the timing cover. You would just have to remove the long through bolts that go clear through the water pump and through the timing cover into the engine block. So you could have done that as an option, left the water pump bolted to the timing cover. I wanted to do an inspection on it while we had it because we don't know the shape that it's in. I wanted to see the inside of the impeller here on the pump itself, and the gasket looks like it had a lot of silicone and stuff on it, so I opted to remove that, check it out, make sure everything was good there, rather than flat rate it and pull them both. Okay, so we've got the harmonic balancer off, most of the bolts are out, but we've got to look a little closer. Back up underneath behind the timing cover, we've got a bolt hidden there, and a matching one on the other side. We're going to get those removed, and then we'll put a pry bar in there and try and get that removed itself. We've got our last two bolts removed that were hidden back up underneath here. We should be good to go on getting the timing cover off. Just going to pry on this lightly. It is aluminum, so we don't want to get carried away. Break the seal there. Get that timing cover removed out of our way. Here's where we want to go. We want to come in here and look at our timing chain and gears. This is the camshaft sprocket here, crankshaft sprocket here, and then this right here is what they call an eccentric, which actually drives the fuel pump. And I'll try and mock that up for you to give you an idea of just what's going on there. Here's our fuel pump. If this were installed on the engine, it would basically be sitting in here kind of like this, and you can see it's offset. So as the engine rotates, what that's going to do is this little eccentric here is going to move that lever up and back, creating the pressure we need to pump fuel from the tank up to the carburetor. So obviously an important part of that. So, but what we were most interested in, timing chain, and just how much slop, if you will, or slack we have in that chain, which looks to be pretty well worn, pretty well stretched. Another thing too of concern, the factory camshaft sprocket here a lot of times had a plastic gear rather than metal. This has been replaced at some point, I would imagine, with a metal gear, but they had plastic teeth, and the plastic would wear, become brittle, break off of there, and create real issues with that chain becoming sloppy. So that's the reason we wanted to go there while we had the engine out. Let's check this. We see it's sloppy. I've got our new timing chain set to go on there. What I'll do next for you is we'll take that off, and then I'll show you how to set this up and make sure it's properly timed so the engine will run again when we're back in the car. So what I want to show you here is we've got a couple of timing marks. One here on the camshaft gear or sprocket. We've got another one. I need to move this little oil slinger or oil shield out of the way to show you. Right here on the crankshaft sprocket. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bolt for the harmonic balancer back in the end of the crankshaft, and we're going to use that to rotate the engine. What I want to do is I want to bring these two alignment marks straight up and down here in the center line of the engine here. So we're going to rotate it around. Now you can see the crankshaft sprocket, of course, has already gone around once, but you can see the size difference there, as they're not going to rotate at the same speed. We're going to rotate the engine and try and bump it around just a little bit and try and get those two straight up and down from each other. Okay, number one, top dead center on compression stroke is where we're going to be right there. Okay, we've got our two marks aligned pretty well. Once again, we're concerned with our slop in the timing chain. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove this bolt here, which will allow me to get the eccentric and the cam sprocket off. We'll get those out of the way, lift the chain up off the crankshaft sprocket, and then we'll probably have to use a puller or a couple of pry bars or something to pry the crankshaft sprocket off of there. Of course, we'll need to get our bolt out of the way in the washer, and then I'll show you to set the new timing chain setup back on there and make sure it's still timed properly. I've got the bolt for the camshaft sprocket loose here with this eccentric. We'll take that out, take the eccentric off. You can see the bolt hole here, and then you see another hole here for a dowel pin. What that's going to do is line up with this. The bolt, the dowel pin together are going to hold this on that offset, if you will, so that when it rotates, it will move the lever for the diaphragm in the fuel pump. Now I'm going to put this bolt back in the cam, and what we're hoping to do here is try and pry out on the camshaft sprocket, but that's going to want to bring the camshaft with it, okay, as it comes out. So what we're hoping to do is pry out a little bit on the sprocket and kind of tap in on that camshaft at the same time. We've got to work that loose back and forth the best we can. Until we get that sprocket to break free from the camshaft. Obviously, we don't want the camshaft coming out with a sprocket. Alright, looks like we got that finally off the camshaft. We'll lift our chain and sprocket off of here. Here's the dowel that I was talking about here that helps to hold the cam sprocket as well as the eccentric for the fuel pump in place. Now we work on getting this off, which obviously we don't need a puller. That'll come right back off for us. Easy enough. We've got our new timing chain set over here. It's a comp cam setup. What I want to do first before I go and just install it is make sure that it appears if we've got the right setup, a matching setup. We don't want to assume that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the camshaft sprocket on top of the original, and I'm going to look at my timing mark here, right between those two teeth on that sprocket. You can see kind of matches up with our other camshaft sprocket as well as the eccentric hole. That'll give us a pretty good idea of that we've got a matching setup here, and then we're going to take our crank sprocket, kind of do the same thing. Alright, we're straight up here on the crankshaft mark on that sprocket. Same thing here. Got our new chain in the box over here. We'll get that set up on the engine and show you how that goes. Got a little cleanup work to do first. Get some of the old gasket material off of here. Some of the silicone that they used. I don't tend to use much silicone, but in some applications it is necessary, and in some applications that's all they use is the silicone. But my recommendation is use it sparingly as necessary. I do use a spray adhesive on occasion also, just to help hold the gaskets in place. Usually your gasket set, if it requires any type of sealant, will be supplied with it. And many times, if you're lucky, they'll have an instruction sheet in there to tell you what's necessary and what's not.
Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, let us know by hitting that like button. We would love to hear from you. Drop us a line in the comment section down below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. If you're interested in helping this YouTube channel grow, there are a number of ways that you can get involved. You can find more information in the video description down below and at the end of this video. Thank you so much, and I will catch you next time.